All right, welcome back to Cinema Files. Today's episode is going to be about the one and only director, Greta Gerwig. She has 3 films out so far. The first one out was
Lady Bird.
And after that, Little Women.
Then Little Women,
Mm-hmm.
and then Barbie.
And we've already talked about Barbie. We've given the whole spiel.
And all 3 are like complete hits, honestly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they really are. From the beginning of her career, really, she only has 3 movies, but they've all been
massive.
They've all been really good.
Absolutely.
You know?
And I will say they've all been nominated for or have won in Academy Award.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she had experience doing acting, and she'd written and worked with a bunch of major filmmakers before, so that definitely probably helped her, really come into her own for like a voice.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us some context on what she's been in up until her directorial debut?
Well, okay, the first thing that comes to mind is Frances Ha, which was a Noah Baumbach film that she co-wrote and starred in, and that one is really good, and it kind of is along the same tone and mood as a lot of her other movies. It talks very much about, being a woman and the experience of growing up as a woman, but it's very much a coming of age of someone in their 20s. So it does match her vibe. And then she's married to Noah Baumbach now. So, yeah.
Cute little studio romance, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the first film that came out, Lady Bird.
Yes.
I love Lady Bird. That has to be like my favorite of all hers, personally.
Honestly. It stars Saoirse Ronan. I think I'm saying that right. She's Irish. And it also has Timothy Chalamet in it, who are also the stars of her next movie, Little Women, 2019, which I think is really awesome.
And they were supposed to at least make appearances in Barbie, but they were both busy with other stuff.
Oh, that's sad.
We're supposed to have Timothy Chalamet and Saoirse Ronan in Barbie.
Timothy Chalamet
That's
and
so
Barbie would have, completed my life, I think.
I love it when directors bring back the same actors so frequently. I know that's something Wes Anderson does a lot.
Yeah.
But I just think that's so cute. And then you have that
Ties.
connection between
Mm-hmm.
the director and the people they're working with. Just
Yeah.
much more close-knit.
But Lady Bird, the movie, we should probably give a synopsis about. It's basically a coming-of-age film set in the 2000s about a high school senior just kind of going through her life, and it very much focuses on her relationship with the people around her, specifically her mother and her hometown.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and any thoughts? I rewatched it, so I have some
Well,
little
the
notes.
title of the movie, Lady Bird, is the name that Christine, who is the main character, gives herself. The whole movie is kind of exploring her relationship with her mother. That was really complicated. They didn't have the best relationship, but I love that it gave the experience of mother and daughter from a lens that isn't perfect.
Yeah.
And the
Yes.
movie was shot in very much a way where it was short bursts of just random little things too. So it filmed almost like it's her memories. These are the things she remembers, which I think is really cute. But her whole identity is she wants to be out of Sacramento. She wants to. I put a good way to say this. Hold on, cut that. I'm trying to figure out a way to
She wants to escape her West Coast and go to the East Coast for college. Kind of escape who she is now in a way.
She wants to very much control her own identity. She
Yes.
gave herself her name, and she wants to be out of Sacramento. She wants to be defined by the things that she chooses. And she's very controlling in that way. And I feel like she gets that from her mother too, and you kind of see that. Her mother's very overbearing. And I also like that Greta made the character of Christine / Lady Bird kind of not likable at times. Because a lot of us as teenagers aren't likable. And I like that we switch up kind of on our opinions of Lady Bird a lot.
She's really a selfish character.
Mm-hmm.
You see the actions of everything going on around her, and you get these little peeks into the lives of the people she's around. But it's all through her lens and how she kind of sees it. I don't know how to describe it, but
Do you think that's also something she kind of inherits from her mother?
I think
Selfish
it
tendencies?
is. I think it is. I think it's just also part of being a teenager, being a teenage girl. We're not perfect, we're growing up, and honestly, our lens is mostly through ourselves.
Absolutely.
And that's definitely how it is. So it's great having that kind of realistic depiction where it's no, she's not likable, but she's so similar to her mother that their dynamic is really interesting. Pretty much, sorry, I know y'all two haven't seen it. I feel like I'm yapping on. But pretty much any scene where they have a dialogue, it'll either start with it going really well and they're having a conversation and then it escalates into a different fight happening, or it'll start with a fight and then there'll be a sudden switch and they're getting along. And the way it flows is so interesting.
And Greta Gerwig does do a great job with that, with her dialogue, which
Yes.
I've like noticed through all 3 of her movies. It just seems so real. Like, it's not even like a movie where they've memorized lines. It's like you're actually watching somebody, a real person, not just a character who has a life outside of this movie. And it's just so, I don't even know specifically how she does it, how she makes them seem so real. But the dialogue is just amazing.
I watched some interviews, and what she talked about is taking a lot of inspiration from, like, theatrical performances, because she originally wanted to be a playwright.
Ooh.
And when you up on the stage, you don't have the dependence of, like, editing and camera work to make things seem natural and smooth and move along. So she would use that in the dialogue. Like, she doesn't really do any improv in her movies. It's all scripted, but it's carefully, but it's scripted to sound very real and very authentic, which is really interesting.
I know something she's gotten a lot of attention for, definitely in Little Women and definitely in Barbie. I'm not so sure about Lady Bird because, again, I haven't seen the movie. But
Please watch it.
her monologues that she gives her characters are a great example of that real dialogue, that presence of real emotion. Is there a monologue that stands out in Lady Bird?
I'm trying to think. I think at the very end, she's writing this. She's leaving a voicemail for her mother. I'm gonna tear up. I can't. This movie makes me cry every time. Basically saying how she's at this point she's moved away. Okay, she's going to school in New York, and after like this long night, she has like the reconnection with herself in her roots, and she says it's Christine. She didn't say it's Lady Bird. It's Christine, her given name, and how she connects. And she talks about how much she's connected with her family in her hometown. And how even though now that she's far away is like the only time she can really see how much it all mattered to her, and how much she took for granted. And that's like the last part of the movie, and I can't. It destroys me.
Oh, that's tragic.
Something that really stands out to me in the movie is like just the beginning scene. The first shot, whenever the movie begins, is Christine and her mother laying in a bed together, and they're facing each other. And I just like that immediately got me from the beginning. I was like, oh. I was like, because I knew the movie was going to be about a mother and daughter, but just something about like seeing that like really like made me feel something. And then the scene directly after that is Christine and her mother listening to an audiobook in the car on their way to, where were they going? I don't remember.
They were going back home because they were touring a college, so they were
yeah.
driving back home and touring college.
Yeah, but they were listening to an audiobook, and they were like both like having like a bonding moment over the audiobook, and then they started talking about something that made them like get into a fight, and that dialogue was just like crazy to me. They were both speaking like at like super fast, and it was just like, wow. I was like, that's crazy.
She jumps out the car.
Yeah, Lady Bird jumps out the car.
A moving car, and that's why
Because she was that frustrated with her mother.
Oh
she
my
jumps out of a
gosh.
moving vehicle, and then like the rest of the movie, she's like a cast on.
Yeah.
That's how you know she's a teenage girl. Just irrational
She
decisions.
jumps out the car.
Raw emotion.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful.
But just the way these scenes flow is like so beautiful, because it goes like from mother and daughter like being so like close to each other, and then immediately there's just some kind of switch where it's like the complete mood of the scene.
And honestly, I've had interactions with my mother like that.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's so
that's
realistic.
how it
just
is.
like hormones and like teenagers. It's crazy.
And then there's a question that Lady Bird asks her mother while she's trying on prom dresses. She asked her mom, she's like, do you like me? Because she was like, she didn't feel like her mom actually liked her. And the mom was like, of course, I love you. And she's like, no, but do you like me?
But do you? And then then she says, I want you to be the best version of yourself. And she says, what if this is the best version of myself? And that definitely is a lot of anxiety, building up from this time where it's like, yeah, you can love someone, but do you like me? I don't know. It's because
It's like, of
the
course
love
the
of a
mother's
mother
gonna
and
love her
daughter,
child,
it's like-
but like, are you my mother or are you my friend at the end of the day?
yeah, like, do you like me enough to, if there wasn't this obligation, would you still be around me?
Mhm.
Which I really think it shows very much their similarities and how similar they are. I know the father in the movie mentions it, like how you and your mother are so similar, and that's really a big point in the movie. I mean, obviously the relationship with her mother, and it's very much mirrored by the relationship with her hometown, Sacramento, that she grows up in. She talks about the whole time how much she hates Sacramento, how much she wants to get out of it, but when she does, she realizes how much it meant to her. Not saying that she wants to stay there forever, but that it's still her hometown. She talks about the first time driving through Sacramento when she got her license, and like how significant it was. And in the movie, they have the quote saying you notice it, and isn't love really just giving attention to something?
Oh,
Which
yeah.
isn't
That's
another
what
message
that's
throughout the
what
movie.
the nun said at her Catholic school, and I was like, oh. And then it immediately switches, like, after, like, as soon as she says that, they switch to another scene where it's, like, something, like, completely, like, lighthearted, where it's, like, they, like, leave you thinking, and then it's, like, oh, on to the next. And it's like,
Man.
whoa, you didn't give me a minute to like process that.
Just jarring.
That's also just
Yeah.
like life.
Mhm.
Because you never know. Like, you can't, in life, you don't really have time to process
Yeah.
things sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Especially that last year, like senior year, even so
Senior's
far.
crazy. Like, we're all seniors, and it's
Yeah.
going so fast.
And it's like, wow. It's like, we have 30 minutes.
Did you know you have 30 minutes?
Did you know you have 30 minutes?
30. I know you love that, Ava.
Do I? But anyway.
No, but definitely her relationship with people around her. Like, even not just her mother, to like, like
Danny
she
and
had
Kyle.
the boyfriend, she had her friend,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you just see how people come in and out of her life and how she affects them. And it's really interesting. Timothy Chalamet plays Kyle.
Timothy Chalamet's in there. I wish I liked him more in that movie.
His character is a jerk,
Yeah.
you know, but even
He's
he
a
has his
jerk.
own things going on.
Kyle's got his own stuff going on.
But
He's kind of pretentious, but it's fine.
I don't want to participate in the economy.
I don't know.
I don't believe in money.
What? What kind of
He's
ridiculousness?
He's like a
Okay.
pretentious rich kid.
he's in a band.
Oh, so you only don't have to worry about money when you have money.
Yeah.
Ironic.
I don't want to participate in the economy. That's what he sounds like.
He's
It's just very like steady, very monotone.
It sounds like this movie is just beautifully orchestrated, and I'm sure much in part by Greta Gerwig, since she was the
Yes.
director. Do you know if Greta Gerwig played a role in the writing process?
I believe she did. I think she writes pretty much all of her movies because
Mhm.
originally she wanted to be a playwright
Mm.
before anything else. Like, that was what she wanted to do, but you know, that's not easy to break into. So I believe that she's written all of her movies, or at least co-written them.
Wow.
Because I had seen an interview talking about Florence Pugh talking about how Greta wrote the dialogue where in Little
Yes.
Women where all of the sisters were talking at the same time.
Mhm.
So
Which is just really impressive.
I also like across all three movies, she just really immerses you like in the time. Like in Lady Bird, it's like in 2002, and there's a bunch of different like settings where it's just like old photo, like it just feels like an old photo that you just stepped into.
feels like
from
very
that time.
nostalgic.
And then like
Yes.
Little Women, it's a period piece, and you're like in it. Like it's just like the sets and stuff
Yeah.
are beautiful on it.
And it's done like a quiet way. It's not over the top. It's very like,
it's just
it's beautiful. But anyways, watch Lady Bird. That's one of those movies that
It's not very long. It's like an hour and a half.
It's like an hour and a half. It's a coming of age movie. It's really beautiful, and I think that there's a level where it seems like pretty much anybody could relate to it. You know, obviously I come from one perspective, but it seems like there's so many like different characters and ideas.
Or if you
introduced.
can't relate to it, it just kept me so engaged because I was switching up my opinions on Lady Bird and Christine the whole time. Like there wasn't a black and white. You're supposed to not like her, or you're supposed to like her. It's just like it's kind of up to you. Because I mean that's how it is in life.
Yeah.
Like there's no black and white opinion on someone. Or it's like people mess up always, and you're kind of changing your
like
view of them.
you can't blame Lady Bird for the bad relationship between her and her mother, or not. You know, like the rocky relationship, but you can't entirely blame her mother either. Even though they definitely both have blame in that. You know.
I would say just all these overarching, I guess that's the right word, overarching elements, like the lived-in sets, the really touching human emotions, the strained relationships, especially between mothers and daughters. I feel like we see that a lot across her filmography. I feel like all of those pop up in Little Women as well, which would be the next movie. I love all the characters in Little Women, especially Joe. Everyone loves Joe. Again, Saoirse Ronan.
Also such
Great
a star-studded cast. I mean, we
Mhm.
have
Literally.
Florence Pugh in it, and Emma Watson, and Meryl Streep is in it for a minute too. Timothy Chalamet's in
Timothy
there.
Chalamet again.
Timothy
Chalamet.
Chalamet.
Love him to death.
But that movie is definitely like it has some similarities, but it's also completely different than Lady Bird, you know?
Absolutely.
So it's been a second since I've watched it.
I watched it, I think the last time was about a year ago, but it just like sticks with me so vividly because I'm watching it, I'm like, wow, like sisters, like that's the whole premise of the movie is her and her like sisters, Joe and all of her sisters, and just how they, you know, like develop after, I guess like spoiler, Beth dies. It's just, that was kind of like when their like childhood ended and they became women. And it's so, it explores all three of their paths and, you know, I guess like the different paths you could take as a woman. I mean, Meg went off and got married and had children, and she was like, that's what she wanted to do. And Joe was like so confused. It's like, you can go have a career. You want to be in plays. You want to be an actor. but Meg's just like, this is what I want to do. Yeah. And, like, the one quote that always stuck with me was just because when Meg said, just because my dreams are different than yours doesn't mean that they're not important. And I was like, ugh. Mm-hmm. Greta's so good at those one-liners where I'm like,
yes.
Oh, give me a minute. But it's so beautiful.
Great. There's so much packed into them every single time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're so poignant and hitting. I don't know.
Like every single little detail of all of her movies are just so intentional.
Mm-hmm. Like, all the scenes where all the sisters are in the house and they're, like, it's either the Christmas morning or they were all on the play. It just felt so warm, and I couldn't help but smile.
Like a big family.
Yeah.
I know that Little Women received a lot of criticism for not having period-accurate costumes, and they didn't look lived in. I was watching a video this morning, and one person pointed out how Beth can be seen in one of the scenes wearing Ugg boots, literal Ugg boots. But aside from that detail, all of the relationships feel lived in.
Yes.
And in the context of the setting, they feel lived in. This doesn't look like someone you're being introduced to, a family you're meeting for the first time. Mm-hmm. This feels like a family you already know. Women. What did you guys think were some of the most defining aspects of Gerwig's directing in that movie?
I'm trying to think. With it being like a period piece, there were definitely a lot of atmosphere, things that had to be done with it, you know. Really bring you into the time period, even though we talk about the dresses and the costuming weren't completely period appropriate. Just bring you into that time period. It's kind of a big task to take on.
Absolutely.
I think Gerwig's biggest feat with her movies is her characters in and of themselves. The dialogues between other characters and their relationships, and even just like expanding upon the insides of her characters without even really having lines, or just you can see a lot about these people. You don't view them as characters, you view them as people. Mm-hmm. And it seems like they have a life beginning before the movie and after the movie. It's just like they're real people. Like, they're not just clear like roles where you're supposed to like this person, you're not supposed to like this person. It's like kind of up in the air, and it's up to you, because a lot of people do things that you love or don't love, so it's just kind of up to you to decide.
There's a lot of nuances in every character. Like, I think Amy, historically a lot of people have never been fans of Amy, and people are like Amy haters, but I feel like the way she's done in this movie, there's definitely ways that you can have so much sympathy for her, because it cuts between when they're younger and then when they're older. Yeah. So you see her young, precocious self, and then when she's older and she's been forced to become more realistic.
I also like how Gerwig took this story that's been done so many times and almost the same way. Like, all of the adaptations are very similar, even like the lines that they speak. She takes some of the lines and she does like reuse them, but she uses them in such like a new way and brings just a life to the movie, and it brings it alive, and it's just so much more interesting, and it's so much of a watch that you just don't want to put it down, even if there are so many different adaptations.
Yeah. I don't know, have any of y'all seen the other adaptations? I'm ashamed to say I haven't, but
I've seen a bunch of clips of them, because I watched a video essay comparing them.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it.
What was some of your favorite examples of line differences from one movie to another?
Like, they would say she would pick out some big words. I don't remember any of them. But like the line, they would say the same line, but all the other adaptations, they had a lot of the same script, but you could tell some of the lines were the same, but just the shots were different. Like when Laurie is confessing his love to Joe, they do it in one shot where they're moving and they're just conveying all this emotion, and all the other ones are just really up close. The camera's still, it's really intimate, but in Gerwig's, they're moving, it's just, they're bursting with energy and with emotion, and it's just so much more like realistic.
And I love that so much.
I think that kind of aligns, like the shot composition, like you said. I feel like that aligns better with Saoirse Ronan's portrayal of Jo. Mm-hmm. She's not as up close and personal. She's not a very intimate character at all. She's just going.
And I feel like her words really, like, she's running away from Laurie's love, and then she's physically running away from Laurie's love.
Exactly.
And it's just,
that entire scene, the monologue with Laurie confessing to Jo, pure
I love
art.
It.
Okay, you know, it's just amazing, because it's so easy to have a monologue feel like chunky and just kind of out of place, but it just feels so authentic. It's so good.
And a lot of that too is the job of like Timothy.
Yes.
Because he is so like, I mean, I've even seen him stuff like on stage, like in plays, him delivering a monologue. I'm like, wow. Like, this man is just truly, like, great at what he does.
He really
is. You can tell
is.
he loves it. And it's just so, it's like, how do you even convey that much emotion. Like, it just has to be, like, in you, you know, for it to seem that real.
It's just, that's one of those scenes that just, you watch it and you can't help but feel something.
Exactly. With this, I feel like the language they use in his profession of love to Joe, I feel like some of that language could be seen as really outdated and a little bit out of place, but just like the pent-up frustration you can hear behind it, just he's so fed up with not having anything back from her, that's what makes it real.
And it's really interesting when looking at it, because of course, like, most people really want Joe and Lori to get Joe and Lori, I thought I got the names wrong for a second, to get together, but then it makes you see why it wouldn't work, because he's willing to change. He talks about how much he's changing himself and how much he wants to be a good husband for her, but Joe is determined to just not have anything change. She doesn't want to have the change, make the change to herself to become a good wife, doesn't want Lori to change himself to be a good husband, which is just, it's really interesting, look at their characters.
And I feel like I didn't even, like, love the whole thing with Lori and Amy, too, because I'm just, like, something in my brain, I'm like, she knows she's the second choice. Like, it just, I don't know who I want him with, but not either of them.
And she has that whole little monologue, too. Like, I have been second to Joe in everything all my life.
And she doesn't settle for him, like, right away. Like, when he treats her like a jerk, she's like, I don't know. I'm going after this rich man who's going to provide for me. But he does win her over in the end. But she does put her foot down, and I'm proud of her for that.
I guess it's just, like, depending on, like, the person, if they just seem right in the end. But something in me, it's like, that's not right.
Florence Pugh's monologue is or like her.
I'm not a poet. I'm just a
during
woman.
the I'm not. Whereas the poets might disagree, but I'm not a poet. I'm just a woman. Like
her Greta's like one-liners that she writes with, and then she's like, oh, like, give me a minute to like unpack that.
The classic Florence Pugh frown that she did. We'll insert a photo.
I love that, Layla. But I think Gerwig just did such a masterful job of keeping all these different motives and characters in mind, along with the historical context of the story, and just really merging them all together with the cinematography and the actors, the acting choices, in a way that just felt so cohesive. It felt so real.
Yes. And it was interesting also because it's an older story, but she views it through a very modern version of feminism,
Absolutely.
too. So you see, the story is very much focused on these specific women and their stories. And a big example of that is the change to the ending. Because most like the adaptations and everything, and like the original story, ends with Joe getting with the professor guy whose name I forgot, you know? But instead it left it open-ended. And I heard her talking about the choice to make the big ending, the last thing you see, be the book, the making of the book. To like, you know, put the audience, like, this is what Joe really wants. Joe is still set on her career.
Yes. She's still living for herself, not necessarily living for love. I feel like one of the video essays I watched saw that as like a meta commentary on the literature scene of the time and kind of how women were pushed to write relationships into their stories. Like how, oh my gosh, what's the author's name? Of Little Women, I'm blanking.
Louisa May Alcott.
That's what I thought. Louisa May Alcott. The video I watched said that she was pressured by her publisher to put Joe in a relationship at the end of the book. And so by putting that off and have Joe pursue her writing career instead, it's kind of offering some commentary on, like, again, feminism and what women should and shouldn't be pushed to do when it comes to their art, their stories, how they view the world and the choices they make.
And even at the beginning of the movie, you see Joe being told to, like, either have the main girl die or have her in a relationship by the end of the story.
Yeah.
So in a way, Joe in this movie is kind of also Louisa May Alcott in a way, which is interesting.
It's cool that they pay some homage to the author.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I like, I mentioned it in Lori's monologue, how, like, the camera doesn't move, but they do that in a lot of the movie. Like, most of the movie, there's barely any cuts of the scenes, and it just moves to a different room of, like, the house. Yeah. And it's just like you're in the house living with these people because the camera doesn't cut. It doesn't change to a completely different scene like it does in, like, Lady Bird and stuff. Because it just brings you in. Because you don't leave the house because they don't leave the house. And it only switches to when it's, like, a different setting.
Oh,
and and it just continues on, and I can't talk today, but it's okay. Y'all, you get it.
I get it, and I really do like that. It does bring you into, once you get the environment, which is such a big part of the story, you know.
I didn't think about that the first time I watched the movie, but now that you mention it,
especially
I can go
like
back
when they're
in my
young
mind,
and
really.
girls.
Absolutely.
Especially the chaos of the house, you can really see it because it just moves between room to room, and it doesn't, like, the camera doesn't slow down and they don't slow down.
It's a little bit frantic, but it's
And
very lived
when
in.
they're adults, it slows down a little bit because they're more mature, and I think I just put that together in my head, but
I imagine that also helps convey like the tone shift from like the joy of childhood to like the hesitancy of their adulthood.
Yes, and I love how it does the cuts in the middle of the movie between their childhood selves and them now. It just gives you so much more perspective as an audience member, looking at, that joy, like child wonder, where it's like you can do anything, you can be anything, everything seems possible, faced with like the stark, reality of growing up, which you definitely see. I think Amy struggle with that the most.
Yeah, the stereotype she's pushed into.
She's kind of forced to be the one. It's her responsibility to marry, and marry someone rich to basically provide for the family in that way. And she's come to the realization that what she loves, she's not good enough at it, and it's not enough to sustain her. Which is, I think she's really interesting. And people who hate Amy are fake. Yeah.
I think that's a technique that we can also kind of see in Barbie. I know we're transitioning here a little bit, but I just wanted to make that connection. In Barbie, like, you have the beautiful pink world, the fantasy land that is Barbie land.
Yes.
And then you have kind of the stark reality of the real world. And I don't remember exactly, but I feel like they also used similar shot composition choices to kind of convey that. Especially with, like, when Barbie floats up down from the top of her dream house. And, like, the camera zooms out and you can just see the whole of Barbie world versus, like, the choppy, I think definitely the shots of the car chases in the real world and the shots of just her roller skating onto the beach and kind of all these much darker, like, much flatter scenes.
I think the camera follows her, like, down, like, behind her car while she's driving through Barbie Land, and that first little, like, montage type of thing, it's just following her through Barbie Land because you don't leave Barbie Land when you're playing with dolls. The same reason why she just floated down from her house. So I think that was a really nice touch, especially with, like, Lady Bird, how it was just like the 2002, you were just pushed into it, and same with Little Women, how you were just pushed into the period piece and you were pushed into this Barbie land. Exactly how we played with dolls.
Yeah. She very much makes all the environments and, like, scenes in her things feel very lived in. Make them, a big part of all of her movies is the environment that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
And she's really good at that, which is really a feat to do.
Absolutely. Did you guys notice any other, like, overarching themes, kind of like the shot composition choices between Gerwig's movies?
I mean, again, with, like, the monologues and, like, one-liners in, like, Barbie, you have America Ferrera's monologue, which we talked about in the last, in our very first episode, our Barbie episode. And
Watch
even,
it.
Yeah, and even, like, another one-liner I can think of is Sasha, whenever she's at the lunch table, or whatever picnic table she's at, and Barbie comes up. She was, like, telling off Barbie, and there was, like, a lot of hard-hitting things in there. She's like, men hate women, and women hate women, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, whoa, 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 hold on, slow down. I was like, you're saying so much, I need to, like, so much, like, heart-wrenching stuff. I'm like, give me a second, girl.
And a lot of her movies are clearly very feminist-focused, with, the most obvious one being Barbie, very much focused on the woman experience. But then even Lady Bird, one that, at first sight, you might not think of it as, like, a feminist story. I think the fact that it's telling something about very real, very, like, a selfish character, kind of like an eye-opening way of how real she is.
Yeah.
It's still very feminist.
I agree. Women are ambiguous, just like everyone is ambiguous. And I think telling unglamorized stories is a very feminist take.
Yeah, it's
That's a great way to put it. My goodness. Unglamorized.
Unglamorized.
I don't know. Obviously, Barbie is a very glamorized character. She is the image of her whole world. She's stereotypical Barbie. She's got the pink dresses, the perfect hair, everything. And then, like, when she goes into the real world, she gets a gynecologist.
Yep.
She gets cellulite. And I feel like that's, like, a moment where we can see the glamorization being stripped away.
Yeah.
It was stripped away from the start in Lady Bird. And kind of we feel not necessarily the glamorization, but, like, the idealism of childhood in Little Women is what gets stripped away. And we see, like, what's real for them as they grow into their adulthood. And it's a lot uglier. It's a lot more raw. It's a lot more real.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, the Little Women in its core is really very much about like dreams. They all have dreams of different things
lives
and different lives, and they all
turn
pursue
out like
it.
they thought.
You know, but then none of the dreams are seen as like unequal in a way, which I think actually we're going to talk about was the first half. Never mind. The part with Meg.
Yes.
Okay, never mind. I won't mention it again. But you know, whereas like she's talking to Meg, and it's like, oh yeah, her dream of being a wife and having a family shouldn't be seen as less important than as Joe's dream of being an author.
Absolutely. Another great feminist moment.
I think we already mentioned that.
Yeah.
I think I've said my piece. Do you guys have anything else to touch on?
Good. Yeah, I think we're good.
All right. Well, then that's our deep dive into the Greta Gerwig cinematic universe.
Should we mention her upcoming?
Oh my God, yes.
What's her upcoming?
She's
Greta
doing the
Gerwig
Narnia.
she's making a Netflix
Right.
adaptation of the Chronicles of Narnia.
Oh,
And
I have heard
Hold
about
your
that.
breath. Guess who was casted as the lead?
Louis Partridge.
Louis Partridge, the love of my life.
Yeah.
Wait,
personally.
really?
Yes.
Louis Partridge, the love of
my
my life.
I'm excited for it. I did not know she was directing
Can
that,
they
but
bring
now I'm
back
even more
Ben
excited.
Barnes?
Can we? I want Ben Barnes to come back, but
In any capacity?
I don't think I've ever loved Greta Gerwig more. Whenever I saw that TikTok come across my For You page, I fell to my knees. I was like, Greta Gerwig, Chronicles of Narnia, plus Louis Partridge.
That's amazing. I wonder how she's going to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, especially because Chronicles of Narnia is like, I mean, pretty much anyone who grew up in the Christian faith, like it can clearly see that like models the gospel like almost completely parallel. But who made the Chronicles of Narnia in the books? Was
Lewis,
it was
not Lewis Carroll.
C.S. Lewis?
C.S. Lewis.
Thank
I
you.
get
always
those two
butcher
mixed
this
up.
too.
And he did say that it was supposed to be like a direct parallel of the gospel. So I'm interested to see how Greta Gerwig, because I don't know if she's religious, but it would be interesting to see how she does this adaptation.
Yeah. 'Cause
It's
she
even
hasn't-
interesting that she picked it up in the first place.
Because she's never really done much with... There's religion, symbolism in Lady Bird, but it's not, like...
It's not like as
It's not as heavy, and it's not as, like, as integral to the plot
Yeah.
and, like, overall themes as it would be
in Lady
Narnia.
Bird. I feel like a lot like it was like viewed as like not as like a nuisance to Christine, but like it was just like something that was there, and she's like,
Yeah, it was one of those things that also was, like, similar to her relationship with her family, where it's, like, she kind of didn't appreciate it when she had it, but then once she's in New York, she goes to a church that, you know, by choice, even though you can see that she was never really big into faith. It was a Catholic school, so she wasn't, like...
It was kind of forced on her. That's just how her life was. She didn't choose it for herself.
But then whenever she went to New York, even though it's not, I don't think it's exactly seen as her, like, converting or anything. I think it's just as her, you know...
just wanting that like comfort, and
that comfort of
familiarity.
the religion. But it'll be interesting to see how she does handle it.
interesting.
Because I know either way, like a lot of people, I think of a lot of people who do love that aspect of Chronicles of Narnia, that it is like, you know, this like famous Christian movie, and it is such a direct parallel of the gospel and a good one. It would be interesting to see if she like kind of like takes that away. I feel like a lot of people would be mad.
Yeah.
Because there is a big difference in media of like portraying Christianity, religious allegories like the lion in the Chronicles of Narnia, and then kind of criticisms of religion as a whole, growing up in a religious household, kind of being in that environment and kind of how a person responds to it. So I'd be interested to see whether she leans into kind of like the glorifying of Christ through the glorifying of the lion versus, you know, the criticisms of religion as a whole, just a perspective or an allegory. I don't know. We'll
It'll
see.
be interesting. And also, I mean, doing a TV show is different from doing a movie, so I'm curious
Absolutely.
how, you know, how she's going to deal with, like, the pacing of all of it. And it'll be interesting. And also, you know, I think Timothée Chalamet should be in it.
While we're
And
at it,
Saoirse
yeah.
Ronan.
While we're at it, Timothée Chalamet,
I mean,
Saoirse Ronan.
I know they didn't show him Barbie, but they were supposed to.
Yeah, let's keep
let's keep it going. Come on.
I want Timothée Chalamet's little goat man. What's his name again?
Oh my God! Yes. I see people. Who did they compare to him? I think it was like Young Gravy or something like that. They compared to the goat guy.
Oh no, it was Jack Harlow.
No, Jack Harlow. Wrong guy.
My
Jack
goodness.
Harlow. Which is so funny.
That'll be an interesting one to keep an eye out for.
Very excited.
I'd also be excited to anticipate kind of how she plays into some of the themes that she's always depicting in her movies so far. You know, feminism, coming of age, growing up, family struggles. I don't know.
I'm wondering if she would change like any of the plot.
I'm not sure.
Just to, like,
I don't think it would be right necessarily to change the plot since it is an adaptation, but we can expect some shifts here and there.
Sure.
But you also saw she wasn't exactly loyal to the plot in
True.
Little Women either.
True.
Which I think for adaptations, I could have a whole rant about this, but with adaptations, you don't have to necessarily be beat by beat to the plot as long as you keep the overall essence of the story.
Yeah.
And, the themes and everything, there are creative decisions that can be made, and it can be for the better.
Where that essence was missed was the remake of Mean Girls.
Yes.
Oh.
We can
I
have a
don't
whole
wanna talk
episode about that.
I don't want to talk about it.
Remakes. Reboots. Those are frustrating.
That's a conversation for its own time.
Yes.
though. All right. Anything else we wanted to touch on?
I think I'm good.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, then there we go. That's our perspective on Greta Gerwig.
Fun.
Thank you everybody so much for watching. Keep an eye out for the Chronicles of Narnia as more information gets released on that. And I'm really happy with what we were able to talk about today.
Me too.
Which is fun.
Thank you everybody so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.
Bye.